says coming in with you in 3, 2, 1. What is coming into you?
It means we're live, Gary.
We're live?
We are.
So before he said that,
All
we were...
across
Wait.
Manchester.
I'm just trying to get a grasp of this. So before he said, before we were live, we were not alive?
No, live. Live. The camera's on.
Camera's on.
You're broadcasting.
We are? To who?
Is it time to retire?
Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Nuts, and this is Josh. And today...
First try.
First try, you know. Today...
Well, you do have your name written on your shirt. Makes
And
it
Yeah,
a
that
little bit
doesn't
easier.
help him at
necessarily
all.
help.
Okay.
No. Today we have Keith Howard, who is a Grand Flamage over at Hope for New Hampshire Recovery.
Okay, hold on a second, Gary.
Yes.
Grand Flamage. I don't know the word flamage.
Cheese.
Oh.
Big cheese.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
Yes, I heard fromage. I guess you must
I
have said
heard the L
fromage.
too, but it should be an R.
It should be an R.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not
That's why I
French.
was
Like I
confused.
said, the name
Why?
tags
What
don't
does
even help.
flamage mean then?
I don't know. I think
Would you
it
guys
may
like
be
me to
a
look it
part.
up?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
would
may
you?
be a part of a man's body that should not be exposed in public.
or
though.
mentioned on TV.
Oh, right. Yes. I'm sorry.
So thanks.
Continue, please.
Thanks.
Yes.
If we get canceled, we'll know who to blame. Keith, you probably got to sit a little bit
Oh,
closer
I'm sorry.
to the thank you.
Yep.
Hey, we got matching shirts too.
Yes, we do.
And I just had something to eat, and I did not spill anything on me yet.
Nope, you made up a brand new word, Gary.
I did?
You did.
That's awesome.
Okay.
I love fabricating words that don't
Okay.
exist. So what's happening over at New Hampshire Hope for Recovery?
Or Hope for New Hampshire Recovery.
Whatever.
We can, you can jumble the words and then just throw them out like dice, however
I'm
they
making
land
up
is
words,
good.
so jumbling your title doesn't,
There you go.
doesn't hurt me at all.
Yes, so at Big Cheese headquarters, what
Big-
we've got
yes.
going, ton of things going on. As you know, Garrick, because you've come in
Yeah.
and painted, we have
I did.
a really thriving group of painters. I don't like to use.
What's a fancy name for painters? There's got to be a fancy one.
Well, there's
fancy name for-
artiste. I'm sure that there is a.
I can't qualify what I was doing there.
Oh, no, you were doing very, very well. That's why we put the gold star on your forehead.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
gave you an extra cookie at snack time, Gary.
That was very nice too.
Yes,
It's,
so-
you know.
So, we don't really like the word program for what we do with anything, just because then it sounds as though there's somebody who's in charge who's telling you what to do and determining whether you're doing it. Instead, we keep art supplies out at all
Well,
times.
that's a contradiction because you said that I did really well and I got a gold star and a cookie. So somebody is determining whether people are doing well or not.
Well, Gary, it was your tears that led to this. Any grown man who breaks down and cries and says, "My sailboat looks more like a duck," then we give them an extra cookie and a gold star. It's not about how well you do.
Okay.
It's the fact that you're getting out there and trying, and you did try your
He's
best.
doing it for the cookies.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
Tag team.
Yeah. So
I feel
So-
threatened.
anybody
I
that
gotta figure out where my safe place is on the show.
Well, it's not in between the two of us,
No,
clearly.
apparently not. Sorry.
So
Good.
for anybody that comes to Hope at 293 Wilson Street on the first floor of the Hoyt Furniture Building, you walk in and there is art all over the walls, all done by members, and it's a pretty stunning thing because for people who are in
Free coffee. You didn't mention the free coffee.
Okay. There's free coffee as well, and free cookies if you cry and you're a grown man.
So if I was younger, I wouldn't have got the cookies.
No, if Josh were there, he would not have gotten a cookie.
no.
No. It's because, and then the fact that you came in with your name and address pinned to your windbreaker so people could send you home
Right.
made it clear that maybe you needed an extra cookie.
Yeah,
and-
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That always helps.
Yes.
Helps.
You started with him, Gary. It's not going to end now.
No.
Right. Call me a flomage, will you?
I thought it was fromage.
Well, it is, but you called me a flomage.
Yeah, but it was grand, so whatever it is.
Okay.
I don't know.
yeah,
I thought
like,
I thought it was
okay.
a compliment. But
So,
apparently not the way I said it.
ton of art stuff going on. Also, a ton of music stuff going on.
You haven't said what Grant Hope Recovery even does.
Well, no, I haven't. I'm kind of leading up to it.
Wow.
Okay.
This is going to take a while.
It is, because there's a lot of cool stuff going on.
Okay, go ahead.
But I will satisfy your, let's be linear and get things out in order needs. Hope for New Hampshire Recovery is a recovery center for people who have stepped away from drugs and alcohol.
Or trying to.
Or trying to. A lot of folks come to us after they've been through treatment and need to figure out a way to restructure their lives so that they don't revolve around drugs and alcohol. But I would say probably a good 40% of folks, the first time they're walking into Hope, they're coming in because life doesn't seem to offer any friendly direction for them. And they know that drugs and alcohol are part of the problem, but they know that they need some kind of solution. So in addition to the art stuff that goes on, the music stuff that goes on, the social stuff that goes on, we also host about 70 meetings a week of various kinds. So there's Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Heroin Anonymous, Marijuana Anonymous, Debtors Anonymous. So all of the 12-step programs also offer Smart Recovery, which comes out of like a secular humanist model that suggests if you change the way you think, you can change your behavior. Then also offer what is called Recovery Dharma, which comes out of the Buddhist tradition and involves a lot of sitting and meditating and looking for insight. And then one thing that's really nice about Hope is that it's almost like an interfaith community. If you think of the 12 steps as being like Muslims and the Smart Recovery people as being like Protestants and the the Recovery Dharma people, I'm going to say being like Buddhists, that everybody outside of those meetings gets along. There's no finger pointing. There's no the way that you're doing things is wrong. Instead, there really is a supportive community. And I started talking about music before you asked me to get all like executive director-ish.
Right.
And
Or grand and
fromage, yes. Yes, we'll not turn this into a fromagerie. Do you think like a menagerie?
That sounds.
Do you think that a fromagerie is a cheese shop?
A fromagerie would be like a bunch of people trying different cheese.
Okay. Well, you're the expert.
We really can't go there tonight.
Okay. Are you anti-cheese or are you lactose intolerant? Is that what it is, Josh?
We're gonna make sure this show doesn't go in the wrong direction completely.
Okay. Okay. So
He's like this. He's part of the group that's a producer.
okay.
So if I get sued, he gets sued.
Okay. Well, I
So
think
this is pretty great for me.
I'm not
'cause
really
pretty
thinking
much-
along those
No,
lines.
I
Yeah,
think-
sure.
I'm just,
yeah,
Josh
not
is your
sure I wanna have
brakes.
the conversation.
You were like a runaway car, and he is your brakes. So
correct. Yes.
Okay. So I started talking about music. There's a group called the Hope Ensemble, which is a group of choral singers that rehearses every Thursday night for a couple hours and then goes out and performs in public 2 or 3 times a month. Do you sing, Gary?
I badly.
Then we would love to have you come.
Well, it can't be any worse than my painting. So
I don't think that's true. I think you could do worse than your painting.
that was almost a compliment.
It was.
See that? You
Yeah.
hear that?
No.
He's very good at this.
But then, and this is all going to tie together if we don't keep going down these rabbit holes.
I love rabbit holes.
Also, the third Saturday of every month, we have a show at Hope called Sicker Than Most, which lasts from about 7:30 till about 11, and it is musicians, poets, artists, performance artists of various kinds who are in recovery coming in and showing off their stuff.
Oh,
and
cool.
so one really cool thing about it is that we've got some professional musicians who have paying gigs. They might come in and perform a song or two right at the opening and then go off to a paying gig, and they get huge applause. Boy, that guy's really good. Then at 10:15, a girl who's just gotten out of rehab might want to read her poetry aloud for the first time, get up and in a shaky voice read that poetry. She gets the same intensity of applause that professional musician did earlier in the evening, so that everybody has a chance to kind of be in the palm of recovery, have the community support you. And one thing about addicts and alcoholics that I believe is that we are very good at taking risks that have almost no payoff. We're really bad at taking risks where we have to expose ourselves and take a real chance that somebody's going to see us. And that is one of the great things, whether it be art or whether it be music, is that it gives people a chance to show off some stuff about themselves and be applauded for taking that positive risk instead of the negative risk. You know?
Yeah, that is a cool thing. I know in to a different way, but Alcoholics Anonymous does that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
People that are new in AA, after a certain point, are encouraged to go out and speak and explain
Right.
to people what happened.
Yep. Yep.
So that getting out of themselves and forcing themselves to speak, because speaking in front of crowds is
Yeah.
supposed to be one of the great fears.
I don't think you've ever had that fear, have you, Gary?
No, well, so at the legislature, I probably shouldn't have said this, but in the legislature, it was one of my first times I got up and I said, I'm new to this, and somebody told me that, if you're speaking before a crowd, it might make you feel less threatened if you picture everybody naked. And I said, but considering the average age of the New Hampshire legislature, you might want to refrain from doing that after lunch.
I'm sure that made you a lot of friends, yes.
Yes, it did.
Gary
Yeah,
tends to make a lot of age-related statements on the House floor.
I
doesn't
do.
he?
I
Yes.
do. Yes.
Well, that's the one place
But-
in the state where you're
but
part of
now-
the younger generation,
But
isn't
now,
it?
20 years later, his hair has changed, and he's talking about himself now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, when I went there, my hair was pretty much brown.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So
I was
you've been in
my
like
40s.
40 years?
Almost 20. What do you mean?
Because then I would be saying that you were 80 or so
Right.
now.
Right.
Okay. I can do the math. How old are you?
It's none of my business. 62. 62.
Okay, and I'm 61.
I'm a sexagenarian.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm not going to follow up on that, as am I.
That's,
Well,
And how old are you,
Gary-
Josh?
Gary, I'm 23.
You look like hell for 23. I got to tell you.
He's right.
I'm 46.
Oh, you look good for 46.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you were half your age, you would look like hell, though.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Or if you looked like half your age, you would.
So-
Anyway.
So you made a statement earlier. You said that your center is for folks who have already stepped away from.
Who are stepping away, yes.
So that's where I was going.
Right.
So are they in other programs at the same time, or does your program also? I'm using the word you don't want to use.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Do you have programs for them in addition to the social aspect? I mean, that's very important.
Right, and so the AA meetings, NA meetings, all of that would be the closest thing to a program that we're offering. So there are a lot of ways that people come into recovery. Some people, recognize at the age of 32, I don't want to be doing the things I'm doing. They go off to a 28-day program where they're introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous or to another form of recovery. They get out, they say, okay, I'm good, I'm going to go to my meetings, everything will be good. And for those people, hope may not enter into the equation except as a place to go to meetings. For other folks, though, particularly for methamphetamine users and opioid users, alcoholics typically take a long time destroying their lives. With meth and with dope, you can mess up a life pretty badly, pretty quickly. So we see a lot of people in their 20s and early 30s who don't really have much practice in being adults. Like, I'm in recovery from alcoholism. I managed for a long time to go to a job, to make a career, to finish college, do all those things. People who start using heroin when they're 16, 17, 18, much less likely to have adult lives that they can return to once they do quit. And so for them, hope is a really good transitional place.
I see.
Then we also have a fair number of retirees or people on disability who need to stay busy doing something positive. So we have a meeting at 9:30 every morning that typically has a fair number of retirees who just want to have something in their day that gets them out of the house, going to a meeting, and then who knows what they do with the rest of the day. We've got volunteers who come in to cut hair. We have volunteers who come in to teach knitting. We've just started
Acupuncture,
yes.
We've had Elizabeth Ropp on the show before your tenure, and she's wonderful.
She's great, yes. So
She's a wicked nice lady.
she is.
So she teaches acupuncture?
She
Or
does- she
provides it as a service?
She provides it as a service, but then she and a woman named Laura Cooley, who is like the grande dame of ear acupuncture, have started putting on trainings at Hope. So now there have probably been 40 or 50 people who have been trained in ear acupuncture. And so Elizabeth comes in, but oftentimes she will have 2 or 3 people who have learned and need practice. So, and that is really I really do love Elizabeth. I don't think that there's anything to the power of ear acupuncture. I do know that there's something very powerful about sitting quietly while a kind, gentle person like Elizabeth or one of the other practitioners puts needles in your ears, talks to you, listens to you. So it's really, from my perspective,
There's some
as much
therapy.
about it is more like therapy. It's like having a really nice lady pay attention to you, and I know.
Not going to say anything. I am not.
Okay, I am glad to hear you say, but now if we could try to raise the bar a little bit.
No.
Saying I'm not going to say anything is saying something.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, I understood that.
Okay.
But the thing is actually Elizabeth and I can't say I helped much, but I did help her a little bit when she was trying to get that through, because and this is how horrible the system is. The acupuncture board didn't want to allow the teaching of ear acupuncture, which is quite specific to
Yeah.
addiction,
Yep.
to be taught to anybody. So regular, normal, or people that are clinicians or whatever could actually do it, because they like having that authority and the
Right.
requirement for all these licenses, which is
Right.
always a problem. So she worked really, really
She did.
hard to get it to get to a point just to allow her to teach other people how to do ear acupuncture, because
Right.
she knew she couldn't, keep her job and do that for places like Hope for Recovery all the time.
Right, right. And so she is now teaching people, or she and Laura are teaching people all over the state. And again, I truly believe that there is significant benefit to having somebody pay attention to you in a quiet and calming way. So when I say I don't believe in acupuncture. That doesn't mean I don't believe in the power of what they're doing. I just think the source of that power isn't so much in the
Coming
pins.
from a different direction.
Yeah, that's all.
Right. She's a super nice lady. I think there's something that is really, really important about having a place like Hope for Recovery is, and I don't know, you probably know this better than I do, but there's statistically, if somebody comes out of Farnham Center or another treatment
Yep.
center, a 28-day program, and it doesn't matter even for what drug, whether it's alcohol, drugs, whatever, if they come out of, let's say they were going to some place in Vermont and they come back to Manchester where they live after 28 days.
Right.
Statistically, if they start hanging around
With the same people.
with the same people and
Yeah.
the same friends,
Yeah.
they're done.
Right.
They'll be either dead or back in treatment very soon.
Right. And
But
that is
so when somebody gets out of a treatment center, having a place like Hope for Recovery, even if there's no AA meeting going on at the
right.
time
You're still
or
hanging out
not,
with other people
you're
who are
still going in and sitting
there's
down
a-
with other people that are doing their best not to do drugs and drink again.
right.
And that in and of itself,
Yeah.
it's, do you know what those numbers are? Because I've heard that something like the people that go from treatment and within 24 hours get to a meeting or get to Hope for Recovery,
Yeah.
their chances of success are skyrocket.
I don't have numbers at my fingertips, and I'm not going to just pull numbers out of thin air.
Oh, I could.
I know you could, and that when I'm not going to say anything, I just don't say anything.
You just did.
But it is
I nailed that.
absolutely.
I don't know whose side to take here.
Okay. I am
Not doing that.
absolutely sure from my own experience that people who get out of rehab and think that they've now got it made are the ones who are most likely to end up back
Absolutely.
in the drink or back on the drugs real quickly. That whether it means that you're going to meetings, whether you're coming to Hope, you need to be making some public effort to separate your new life from your old life. And if you just go back to, Stan's Pub and Subs or whatever and sit at the same stool and say, well, I'm going to have a root beer today instead of my regular Coors, within a matter of days, you'll be right back to drinking the Coors you were drinking before.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is one of the biggest challenges in a state like New Hampshire, where there are so few treatment facilities. There's Farnham here, there's Green Mountain up in Effingham, there is Keystone down in Nashua, but for the most part, people that are coming from all the small towns in the North Country have to travel far away from where they live in order to go into treatment. And then when they go back to whether it's Milan or Berlin or Pittsburgh, there may not be a thriving recovery community there for them to step into. Like,
Right.
I lived for a year up in Pittsburgh, about 5 miles from the Canadian border, and for me to go to an AA meeting, I was driving 45 minutes south to get to Colebrook,
Right.
and then going to a church basement where there might only be 5 or 6 people. That was after I had been sober for 10 years and was just maintaining my sobriety. If I were newly sober and most likely didn't have a license, might not have a car, and went back to Pittsburgh, I would have been sunk real quickly.
Yeah.
So, are there programs in place for folks like that? I like you said, there's 45 minutes to get to an AA meeting.
Right. That
what-
takes
what-
dedication and it takes money.
It does. So, are there
There's
folks like your organization out there that are
So,
trying to
yeah,
kind of highlight that and maybe
So we do
find a
have
way to-
we have a center in Berlin, which is thriving and doing well, but so Berlin, it's called a city because of its form of government, but a city of about 8,000 people. The thing is that Milan, the town that's 10 miles north of there, if you don't have a car or you don't have a license, Berlin might just as well be Manchester because you're not going to walk 10 miles in this kind of weather. So there are a lot of interesting breakthroughs being done with telehealth or remote therapy, whether it be online AA meetings or NA meetings, or with checking in with a therapist on a daily basis remotely. I don't think it's as good as sitting down eyeball to eyeball, but it's way better than nothing.
Yeah, I know. The other thing too is, and that's the hard part too, is a lot of people go into a program, and they might be up in Berlin, but if they can get active enough, they can find. Typically, they can find other people to hook rides with.
Right.
But that takes the dedication of making sure when they went back to Berlin, they absolutely positively got to a meeting no matter what.
Right.
And
And
Colebrook, they also can go over to Vermont. I think
Yes.
there's a couple meetings over there that are.
There are, but those
stone's
are
throw.
even farther away.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. And they were good meetings, but what was I going to say? Oh, most people, when they're first going into treatment or first coming into recovery, like I never went through a 28-day program. I just, at the end of my drinking, wanted to commit suicide, walked into the VA here in town and said, "Hi, my name's Keith Howard, and I don't really want to be alive anymore." So they put me into the psychiatric unit at White River Junction Hospital in Vermont, and then in conversation with the doctors there, it came out that alcohol was certainly a big part of my problem. And then I was introduced to the program of recovery that remains central to my life. But when I went into the hospital, and even for the first month or so after I got sober, I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted to stay sober. I wanted to give up on the negative consequences of my drinking, but I didn't necessarily want to stop drinking. And my goal was, okay, I need to dry out, and then I can start over again and drink like a gentleman. The problem is that for alcoholics of my kind, once we have turned into pickles, we can't be changed back into cucumbers. And once I learned to use alcohol to knock myself out and as a great anti-Keith medication, I could never drink responsibly again. That is my belief, is that I need to be abstinent forever. There are many folks, some folks, who believe more in a risk management or harm reduction model, which says if you've been doing heroin and now what you're going to do is smoke marijuana, that is a better thing than using heroin, so that can be your pathway to recovery. And that works for some folks. It wouldn't work for me. Everything would lead me back to self-destructive drinking and drug using.
So I'm not aware. I wasn't aware of any paths where folks do that, where they trade one vice for a lesser vice.
Right, and that is a movement, and I support people for whom that works. It wouldn't work for me, and I'm very clear with folks about that if that is the choice that you're making, I will support you in that, but I need to let you know that's not how my disease of addiction works. I need to be abstinent.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is, and one reason I wanted to have you on now is because we're going into the Christmas season, and people should know that alcohol is a depressant.
Yeah.
And like you said, you were drinking too much and you wanted to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Well, if you're constantly drinking depressants, the obvious result of that is very likely you might want to kill yourself.
Right, but the
So the suicidal ideations are just part of the picture.
right, but there is initial euphoria for the alcoholic, so that when I would get 2 or 3 or 4 drinks into me real quickly, I would feel euphoric, and that's the part that I would remember, and then the depressant part would kick in, and that's when I would want to commit suicide. But I would just focus on the experience of the euphoria, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's selective remembering.
Yeah, well,
I think that's the way that most addicts view whatever. I mean, you can't tell someone who's just come out of Narcan that the bad part,
right.
because the only thing they wanted was that initial euphoria, right?
Well,
And it was so quick and so easy.
Yep.
So that's what, like you said, that's what they're looking for.
Right. And a couple of weeks ago, I had an experience that really put this into perspective for me. There was a young woman who, not a Hope member or anything, but was standing out on the street in front of our facility and fell down on her back. And everybody in Hope thought, oh, she has overdosed on opioids, came running out with Narcan. It turned out that what she had been doing was using duster, which is like the aerosol you use to clean off a computer keyboard. And so when people saw that Narcan wasn't going to be either necessary or effective, folks kind of wandered away. And as it happened, she got up and she started to run off. And I walked quickly after her because I am 61, so I didn't run. But I walked quickly, calling an ambulance while I was following her. And then while we were waiting for the ambulance, I was holding this, I guess she was 26, 27, so she was a woman, not a girl. But to me, the age of my daughters, holding this woman while she had the can of duster and was just fighting to get it up to her mouth so that she could go limp as a doll. And I was holding her because I didn't want her to fall and hit her head. And it just took away any of the romance of drug and alcohol use, because when you come down to it, her taking that poison and spraying it directly into her lungs is the same thing as when somebody like Gary or me starts drinking the way that we want to drink, or the same way that the heroin addict who is, getting out his works and cooking things up. Like, there's lots of ritual that goes along with other drug use. This was just cut out all the bull. I want to knock myself out. And it really did show me in a very definite way what addiction is like.
Do we have somebody over there?
Hello.
Hi. Hi, Gary.
Oh, come on, sit down.
Yeah?
Yeah, just walk around in back of the cameras, that's all.
Okay.
I've not heard of the duster thing. That's how far separated I am from that type of
Good for
community.
you.
It's just
How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good. My name's Mark.
Hey, Mark. I'm Keith.
Hi, Keith. Nice to meet you.
Nice to
You gotta
meet you. Are
pull
you
a-
a Dead fan, or is that just a shirt?
I am a Dead fan.
Okay.
What's left of them?
Yeah.
You gotta pull the mic up pretty close to you. Yeah,
Okay, and
perfect.
do you have
perfect.
a favorite song? There is a correct answer, so.
Yes, I do. I think Rain and Snow.
Sing it for me.
I'm sorry, but that's why they sing
that's why
it.
Gary bring the microphone up closer.
That guy.
So anyway, Mark is my surprise guest.
Okay.
Because tell him why you're here. What happened?
Well, okay, so 10 months ago, I was down and out.
Yeah.
Had enough. Was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I had an issue happen that made me decide to go back to AA.
Yeah.
So I looked in the book and I saw what's the name of the building?
The White Building,
The
Hope for Recovery.
Hope for Recovery
Yeah.
building. There you go.
Yeah.
So I went there 10 months ago, really feeling pretty bad about, everything that's been going on in my life. And, I met the person who was going to be my sponsor there.
Nice.
So I walked up to this person after the meeting and I asked him, because I knew that I needed to get honest and I needed a sponsor if I was to have any chance of getting my life back in order.
Yeah.
So got outside myself, got up to courage, asked this guy to be my sponsor, and he said, well, he goes, I live in Ware. I guess it's pretty funny because I do too. So no coincidences. So I went to this place and not knowing what to expect, and I've been there a lot of times since, and
Nice.
there's a lot of good things going on over there.
Yeah. So, what has changed this time around for you so that things seem to be working better than
Well,
previous times?
I follow. First of all, I follow my sponsor's suggestions, and this is not the first time around for me.
Yeah. I could tell when you said going back to.
Going back, yep.
Yeah.
The program's all spelled out.
Yeah.
I needed somebody to give me a little bit of pride. This time I really didn't because I was sick and tired. I was done.
Yeah.
I had enough.
Yeah.
So I was ready to do whatever it took. And this time, what I've done different is I actually started putting pen to paper
Yeah.
and doing the suggestions and putting, my step 4 down on paper.
Yeah.
And, making a list of all the people that
What's,
I
what,
have.
what is step 4? Because a lot of people won't know what steps you're talking about.
Well, step 4, I don't know verbatim.
You know the gist of it.
Yeah, so you have to make a list of all the persons you have harmed
Yeah.
and become willing to make amends. And so that list was quite a big list,
Right.
because as alcoholics, not only do we hurt ourselves, but we hurt the people we love.
Yeah.
And so something I never did before, my 4-step. I did my 4-step. I wrote it down. I shared it with my sponsor.
Yeah.
And it was like a gorilla that came off my back,
Yeah.
So even though, that's not the end of it, it's an
Yeah.
ongoing process. I got that big monkey off my back, and so my primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other
They're
alcoholics
alcoholics to
achieve
achieve
sobriety.
sobriety. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
primary purpose.
You can probably tell I've been in a few church basements myself, but
Yeah, and this you can apply this to any number of different addictions. Mine wasn't just alcohol. I've had other demons in the past, and
yeah. Well, I can tell you that from my experience, once I had put down booze for, say, 3 or 4 months, that wasn't my problem. It was my life that was my problem. And so for the last, 12 and a half years, I've been working on changing my life. I don't struggle with booze right now, although at any minute that could change and then I'd need to figure out what to do about it. But now it's, how do I become a better father? How do I become a better employee? How do I become a better boss? How do I become a better man? Not how do I stay away from a drink? And I remember when I first got sober, all I wanted to hear about was, how do you get through 24 hours without drinking? And now I can pass on things, but I don't need that message.
it's definitely a God-given program. And like you said, to help better yourself as a person. I mean,
Yeah.
today I'm comfortable right where I sit.
Yeah.
I couldn't say that
Yeah.
in the past.
Well, when I was using, I couldn't look myself in the eye in the mirror. Like even when I was shaving, I'd never catch my eye. And now I feel comfortable with the man who's looking back at me.
Sure. Yep. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
And, you know, I look forward to the days where I'm going to be able to extend my hand to somebody else, you know,
Yeah.
because that's how I got to keep it, is by giving it away.
Right.
And, you know, this is all things you hear. I didn't make
Right.
any of this stuff up.
No, I know. So one thing I heard when I was first coming around that has remained central to my recovery ever since is a grateful heart will never drink. And it really is true. If I am focusing on what I have instead of what I don't have, if I'm focusing on being thankful for things instead of, like I was such a resentment factory when I was using. I could just sit there and like driving home at the end of the day, I can vaguely remember thinking about, okay, who am I pissed at? And that's what I was going to do, is go home and drink at them because, you know, my boss is a jerk, that girl is a jerk, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. It's amazing when you put the drink down, you know, it's like
Yeah.
everybody changes, but really, you know,
Yeah.
it's you. that
Yeah, it's your
changes,
perception of things that change, yeah.
Mark, can you just pull a little bit closer to Keith to get
Sure,
you a little bit further on camera?
Yeah, sure.
That's
Okay.
good.
Yes, as the handsome one, you should definitely be in the frame, so. Okay, so you came around to Hope, and has it been exclusively AA meetings that you've gone to?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, like one person I know in the program, he says that's the Cadillac.
yeah,
AA is the Cadillac
Yeah.
of the program. And it is. I mean, it's what started it off.
Yeah.
You know, these principles and these steps, you know, help so many different people, and that's why it's a God-given program.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I honestly believe, and you know, one of my greatest gifts is last September, my mother passed away.
I'm sorry to hear.
And yeah, it was a real tough thing, you know, and she kept praying that I would get sober again, you know, and she knew. She was 90 years old, and you know, she still had her faculties about her, and you know, she kept going like this, and you know, saying, you better get sober, you know, and I finally did. I got sober, and you know, she was proud of me, and in her, you know, dying moments, she was at home, surrounded by her family, and, you know, I was able to be there for her, you know, and make her comfortable, just like she made me comfortable when I was a kid,
Yeah,
you know?
that is really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, to kind of contrast that, when my mom was dying, which was, 20 years ago, I was still actively using, and she'd had a brain aneurysm, was taken to the hospital and kept on life support until my sister and I could get there to be with my dad. And this was like at 10:30, 11 o'clock on a Friday night. And so I was living in Manchester, they lived in Durham. I'm driving over to the hospital in Dover, and the whole way I'm thinking, shit, if she dies, I'm not going to have any booze. Let's see, I gave my dad a bottle of scotch for Christmas. He's not much of a drinker. I wonder if he, like, and as I'm going to say goodbye to my mother, I'm thinking, how am I going to manage to get booze once this is done? That was one of the things that I needed to make amends for, because that, like, I just felt like the absolute worst son in the world. But I couldn't stop it.
Sure.
I still had to take care of my needs,
Yep.
because the great I am, you know, needed to be satisfied.
Oh yeah, I mean, there was times, you know, where I definitely put my addictions ahead of, you know, my family,
Yeah.
I think that's
including
what
my mother.
that's what happens with all addictions.
Yeah.
You know, is that fundamentally that becomes the most important thing in somebody's life. There is nothing even comes close to second. The addiction, whether it's to alcohol, heroin, whatever it is, becomes God.
Yeah. Well,
Like your true focus in life, if you're going to lead a reasonably happy life, should be, what am I going to do for God today? When you're addicted, it's what are those drugs going to do for me today? And that's it. That's the only thing you care about.
Yeah, well, and I felt like alcohol was like oxygen for me, that I needed to make sure that I had enough and that I could not run the risk of running out. You know, like with oxygen, people wouldn't say, oh, you know what, here I am in this vacuum, I'll be fine until tomorrow morning. It's like, no, I need to get out, I need to get oxygen in my lungs. That's how I felt
Now.
about booze now, right? And that is how I felt about booze and in my earlier career about heroin and meth.
Now, what do people? The last time I had Hope on, we were talking a little bit about because this is the Christmas season.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a mom who's watching their child die, basically.
Mm-hmm.
What can they get from Hope for Recovery?
Okay. So we offer a lot of family support. Like this Saturday from 4 o'clock until 6 o'clock, going to be a presentation called Addiction in My Family, put on by a woman who lost a child to addiction. And that'll be a chance for folks to get together, be supportive of each other. And then we have always a handful of volunteers who have either lost a child or a spouse or who are living with somebody who is using, and they just want to come to Hope to help out, just to be around and see that recovery is possible.
Right.
Because when you're like, I've always been the alcoholic or addict in a relationship. I can't imagine how heartbreaking it must have been for any woman that was ever involved with me to think, okay, Keith's getting better. Things are going, oh, there he went again.
Right. Right.
And there he went again. And there he went again. So we do have a lot of family support. But before I forget, I want to mention that there's a thing called an Alkathon that goes from 6 o'clock Christmas Eve to 6 o'clock Christmas night. That's at St. Raphael's Church on the west side here
Right.
in Manchester. And that is 24 hours of continuous AA meetings.
And food.
And food.
You got to add the food and
Okay.
the coffee.
And there's also a raffle. And in addition to there being a meeting, there's also just a chance to socialize and eat and be in a place where you're not going to be tempted. And then Narcotics Anonymous, NA, has a similar thing from 7 in the morning till 7
Is
at
the
night.
food is good?
Okay. The food.
He's just in it for the cookies, Keith.
Okay, right, that's right. So from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, same kind of thing, but that's at Hope.
Oh,
And
okay.
so- yeah, so.
That's pretty cool.
And while AA may be the Cadillac, some people find that when they go to AA, if they start talking about their drug use, that they're not as welcome, and that Narcotics Anonymous speaks to them. And in Manchester, we're lucky to have Narcotics Anonymous and Heroin Anonymous that are both very traditional 12-step groups.
Yeah.
Like let's say, I do not violate tradition. As somebody who has experienced a lot of these different groups and, been as a visitor
Nice
or
work,
whatever.
by the way. That was good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I can say that walking into the Friday night Heroin Anonymous group at Hope has the same feeling and the same message as walking into, there's a guy named Bobby T who has a meeting on Saturday nights at Hope. It's the same message with the same positive, affirming, but still holding people responsible. So we're lucky because there are places in not just New Hampshire, but the country where AA has been very watered down or NA has been very watered down. Here in New Hampshire, we're lucky that
Still pretty traditional.
it's still pretty traditional.
So I got to tell you something.
Yes.
As a Christian
Mm-hmm.
and somebody who absolutely knows there is God,
Mm-hmm.
I've been to a lot of churches.
Mm-hmm.
And I challenge anybody that's watching this program, if you want to see miracles, and I mean miracles, you really should go to an open AA meeting and just watch. Just sit and watch. You don't have to be an alcoholic to go to an open meeting.
Right.
You
And
can
just
sit
listen
and
to the
watch.
stories
The
and
most beautiful story I've heard, one of the most beautiful stories I've heard in the program was a little while ago. And it was a guy got up and it was at an open meeting, so anybody can go. And he was talking about how he came into the program as an atheist. And he struggled with his addiction, because some people come in and even 6 months down the road, they still want to drink
Yeah.
like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
They're still like,
Right.
still want that oxygen, as you aptly analogy used. So they still want that. 20 years down the road, still wants to drink and wants to commit suicide. So he's been 20 years atheist. He's read the Bible. He's read the big book. He has all the answers, but he still lacked any faith or belief in God. And he was sitting in Boston, and he was just at the end of his rope, and he just caved and prayed and asked God for help. His desire to quit drinking went away immediately, and his desire to kill himself went away immediately. And it floored him. He went into a recovery center like Hope
Yeah.
and just sat there for 2 hours shaking because it worked. It was a miracle. And the reason you see that miracle so much in 12-step programs, I think, is because if most people that pray for relief from certain ailments or to get a new car or to make the mortgage payment, and that's kind of Morpheus. It doesn't necessarily. It's not concrete.
Yeah.
And God might have helped you get over those hurdles, but what really God cares about the most is your soul. And so if somebody's struggling with addiction, that is not what God intended for them. There's no way that that's God's intent, that somebody die on the street from heroin. And so when somebody turns to God and asks for help, God is there for them. And that miracle you can see at any AA meeting. They're all in Manchester, whatever surrounding town you want to go to. There is an AA meeting. You should go to an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous just to understand and to see the miracles.
Right.
Because it's mind-boggling. Because when you go into a meeting of 100 or 50 or 25, whatever the number is, people, you're looking at 100 people that every ounce of their body wanted to keep drinking.
Right.
That's all they wanted to do. Just like you said, like oxygen. That's all they wanted to do is continue to drink and die doing it. But something outside themselves intervened and helped them relieve themselves of that obsession. It's an amazing thing.
Well, when I first got sober, for the first couple of months, I did have this huge obsession to drink, and I talked with a mentor of mine, and he said, well, get down on your knees and ask God to remove the obsession. I said, I don't believe in God. He said, I don't care whether you believe or not. Get down on your knees, ask God to remove the obsession. I said, yeah, but I'm going to feel stupid. He said, well, if you don't believe in God and you're doing this alone, why do you feel stupid? Nobody's watching you. God can't see you because you don't think he exists, so just get down on your knees, ask the God that you don't believe exists to remove this obsession. And so just to get him off my back, I was living in a homeless shelter for homeless vets at the time, and waited till I had privacy, got down on my knees, said, God, there's no God, but God, please remove this obsession from me, and swear to the God that I did not believe in, from that day forward, I've not had an overwhelming urge to drink or to drug. It's truly miraculous I am not a Christian. My notion of a higher power would take more than a couple cups of coffee to talk about, but I can say that I do believe in miracles because I know that gnawing emptiness inside me, once I asked a higher power to remove it or to fill it with something, that happened, and that I am not the same man that I was before I got down on my knees.
Keith, Mark, thank you guys for coming.
We're done?
We're done.
We're done.
All right, so this coming holiday season, call up Hope for Recovery if you need help. Really get help. God's out there for you. There's people out there that are willing to help.
It's hopefornhrecovery.org, right?
Yes, hopefornewhampshirerecovery.org, 293 Wilson Street in the old Hoyt Furniture Building. Ton of art, free coffee. We look forward to seeing you.
And Keith is the Grand Fromage.
The Grand
Fromage.
Yes.
We'll see you guys next week.